that they're primary and secondary names. Secondary names of God indicate his position, like Ishvara, Parabrahman, Adhoksaja, Paramatma. He's supreme. He's all-powerful. He's almighty. He's the source of everything. That's his position. And then the primary names are the names like we're going to be singing. They're names of Krishna in his relationships with his beloved devotees. Yasoda Nandana, Giri Dharavati, the lifter of Govardhan Hill, and so forth. Gopi Jana Balaba, Radha Madhava. These are names of Krishna in his relationships with his devotees. And those primary names have the effect of awakening love. Awe and reverence is the first one, the secondary names. But intimate relationships of loving dealings, it's just like the members of the media, they refer to a dignitary as mayor or Mr. President, sir. That's Your Honor. The judge walks into the chamber and everyone rise. But then, the judge has his family, and his kids call him dad, and his mom calls him honey, and whatever else goes on. So there's the intimate relationships, and then there's the formal, the position, the post. So these are primary names of Krishna in his pastimes in Vrindavan, and they have potencies to awaken our love for him. So that's what we're doing. So now we're ready. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Jasodanandana Brajajanaranja Jasodanandana Brajajanaranja Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jayo Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Ashtatarasatasi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. Okay. So, we're going to be spending some time with Krishna tonight. And every morning and every night for the past couple of months and going forward. As long as this pandemic thing lasts, it looks like this is what I'm going to be doing. Every morning and every night with Krishna, with groups of devotees online. So the persons here, please be ready to ask some questions at the beginning when I finish speaking, because it gives people online chance to send in their text message questions, and we'll read those. But you guys first. So I think I'll go back a little bit. When this situation of not, what do you call it? Self-quarantine and stay-at-home order and all that stuff. I started this reading from the Bhagavatam on texts that would help people appreciate whatever they wanted to speak about. So, interestingly, the first topic that the devotees wanted to hear is, could you describe the kingdom of God? That was the starting point. Because we have an idea of what this place is, and then there's what's beyond this place. There's heaven, and according to the Vedic picture, heaven is a place that's within the universe, and then there's what's beyond the universe. Yeah? There's a distinction between Svarga, or a heavenly realm, where everything is also temporary, and everything within the universe. I'm holding my hands like this because it's described as like a coconut. That is, it has 7 layers of shell, and then there's a hollow part inside, half filled with water. The Garbhodak ocean is the bottom half of this universe, and the upper half is the planetary systems, 14 in number. And we're in the middle planetary region. The ones below us, that's the bad place. And then there's ones above us, that's the good place. And then there's middle place, that's us. The Earth, Bhu Mandala, is in the middle planetary region. Svarga, heaven, is above us. And then there's planets above the heavenly region. Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Brahmaloka. 4 more regions above heaven. And then there's the shell of the universe. And each shell is 10 times bigger than the previous. So it's a big shell. And then that's one universe. And there's, according to the Vedic picture, many, many universes. And those many, many universes, they're floating on the causal ocean. Just a picture in your mind, imagine many footballs, because they're not exactly round, they're kind of egg-shaped universes. They're floating in the causal ocean. And then on the other side of the ocean, the other shore of the ocean, is the spiritual sky. And in the vastness of the spiritual sky, there's many, 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 many unlimited numbers of spiritual planets called Vaikuntha planets, and among them, the largest, shaped like a lotus, is Krishna Loka. So that's a picture of Krishna Lokas in the spiritual realm. We're in this material realm, and there's a counterpart. We discussed this yesterday evening. How old is that girl? 6 years old. You know what an embassy is? Okay, good. I'm looking at the kids. So, and I explained this yesterday evening. If I have an American passport, and I'm not going to travel internationally anytime soon, but if I wanted a visa to go to some country, I already have a visa to go to India, but supposing it's expiring. So I would go to the Indian consulate, and when I walk inside the door of the Indian consulate, it's India, although it's in Chicago. The laws of India rule. The water is from India, the cups are from India, the paper is from India, the people are from India. It's India. And I walk outside the door, and now it's Chicago. So it's Little India, although it's in Chicago. That's an embassy. So Krishna has an embassy. From Krishna Loka, he has a place here that's his place. And it's non-different. 100% non-different. We're going to read some things this evening that describe how big it is. But how big it is by material measure, but the spiritual realm is within, the entire spiritual realm is within that dimension. Just like, maybe you know this pastime, when Mother Yasoda bound Krishna with rope. You know that one? Yeah? Okay, good. So when she tried to bind Krishna with rope, the rope wouldn't go around Krishna's waist. And the reason it wouldn't go around Krishna's waist is because he didn't want it to. It's called Satya Sankalpa Shakti. His desire was no. And so without Krishna's sanction, it's no. And then Krishna withdrew his no, and it became a yes when he saw the love of Mother Yasoda. So she was able to bind Krishna with her love, not with rope. And then later another pastime happened. That is, Mother Yasoda, actually it was earlier, Mother Yasoda was told by Krishna's friends, little boys, they're about 3 years old. Think of somebody you know who's about 3 years old. Pretty small, right? 3 years old. So Krishna's friends and Balaram told Mother Yasoda Krishna's eating dirt. And Krishna said, I didn't eat dirt, they're lying. She said, why would they lie? They're not your enemies, they're your friends. And then there's Balaram, he's your elder brother, and he's saying you ate dirt, so why are you saying you didn't? He said, you don't believe me, you can look inside my mouth. So she looked inside Krishna's mouth, and what did she see? She saw the whole universe. She saw, I mean, that's a lot. Now, his body's, a 3-year-old boy's body is small. She saw, he gave the eyes to see, and he showed her the entire universe, mountains, rivers, planets, living entities, trees, the whole shebang was in Krishna's mouth. She even saw Mother Yasoda looking inside Krishna's mouth, So there. Now, how's that possible? Because everything is within Krishna. Everything, there is a source of everything, and that which is the source of everything has everything within the source. And then the source can extend or withdraw, but everything is within the source of all things, and that's Krishna. So, although Krishna's mouth was little, everything was within him, and she saw it. So similarly, there's a tract of land near Delhi called Vrindavan, and within that tract of land, there's the whole of the spiritual abode of Krishna, which is the largest in the spiritual world, in the spiritual sky. So, how does something? It goes against three-dimensional space. You young people, you know about science, and science is based on three-dimensional space, length, width, and breadth, and you can determine, your coordinates to determine, like your GPS system. You put in where you're going to go, and there's a satellite that tells you how to get to where you want to go, and they know where you are and where you want to go. It's three-dimensional space. But there's space that's beyond three-dimensional space that's kind of like mind expanding. So there's a tract of land in India called Vrindavan, and according to scripture, it's a certain number of square miles, or a certain 40 miles in breadth, or 5 yojanas, which is a Sanskrit term that means 40 miles wide, or 32 square miles, etc. So we're going to hear those terms. But inside that is Krishna's spiritual world. Just like he showed Mother Jasoda, within his mouth was the whole universe, the whole spiritual world is within that little space. And it's because Krishna has unlimited potency, and he can do that. So we've been hearing, there's a certain passage that we've been reading from, and I'm sure you know, Krishna appears on Krishna Janmashtami. Every year, most Indian families, or all Indian families, practically all Indian families, observe Janmashtami as the day when Krishna appears. And when Krishna appeared, he appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki in the prison house of Kamsa. And he was the 8th child of Devaki. So when he appeared as the 8th child of Devaki, it was midnight. That's why we fast all day and then have a midnight arti and then take prasadam. So when he appeared in the prison house of Kamsa as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared in a four-armed form. Most children don't look like that. And when you're born. And he was a full adult stature. And he had crown, and he had ornaments, and he had nice dhoti, and that's not how children are normally born. So Krishna, received prayers first from his father Vasudeva, and then from Devaki, and then Krishna spoke to both of them, saying, you please me very much by your austerities. 2 yugas ago, in Satya Yuga, you went by different names, Sutapa and Prishni, and for a long time you underwent austerities simply to have me as your son, or son like me. And I appeared before you in this very same form. And I told you, you plead me so much, for 3 lifetimes in a row, I'll appear as your son. So he did that. He appeared as the son of Sutapa and Prishni. The name during Satya Yuga was called Prishni-garbha. And the next was, he appeared as Vamana. Vamana is the dwarf Brahmin who took 3 paces of land from Bali Maharaj. You know that story. That was a second appearance. And then the third appearance was Vasudeva Krishna, four-armed Krishna. And Mother Devaki, his mother, said, Kamsa, when he hears the eighth child is born, he's going to come in and try to kill you. But if you assume a little childlike form, maybe we can hide you. Now he's shown he's Vishnu. And Kamsa can't kill Vishnu. But her mothers aren't. Mother Devaki wasn't very rational at that moment. I was going to say mothers aren't always rational, but she wanted to see Krishna as her son. So he assumed a childlike form, but he said, when I assume a childlike form, please take me on the other side of the river Jamuna and place me by the side of Yashoda, because she will have given birth to a female child. You bring back the female child back here. And don't worry, the guards will fall asleep. And there's locks on the door in the prison. Don't worry, the locks will fall off. And it's the dead of night, it's midnight, and there's a big storm out there, but don't worry, Anantashesha will cover you so you won't get wet, and you'll be able to see because he has jewels on his hoods, and you can cross the river Jamuna, no problem. So Krishna went there. Vasudeva took him there. And the place, one of the 12 forests of Vrindavan is named Mahavan. Maha means great. Vana means forest. Mahavan, great forest. And that area of the sacred land of Vrindavan is called Gokul. Gokula. So they lived there, that is, Nanda and Jasoda and all of the associates, because Nanda's the king. He has lots of followers. He's in charge of the kingdom. And the people in the kingdom they had great affection for him. So when he was over in Gokula, they were with him. But there were problems in Gokula. I mean, there's problems in Chicago too. But the problems were, Kamsa was sending demons to kill. The first one, Putana. Right? Putana. The nurse that came to try to poison Krishna. Then came the cart demon, Shakatasara. Then the whirlwind demon, Trinavarta. And then after the Damodar Leela, Krishna pulled over to the 2 Arjun trees. You know that story, right? Yes? And so they're thinking, gosh, our children aren't safe. Maybe this isn't an auspicious place. Maybe we should relocate for the protection of our children, for the well-being of our cows, and for the well-being of the whole community. And part of the situation was the cows lean this way, because there's, yeah, good, you're good. The cows, after some time, Krishna lived in Gokul for 3 years and 4 months. So he's still a little boy. But when he's 3 years, 4 months, the elders got together and started considering, there's a lot of danger here. I mean, the Lord saved our son from having the trees come crashing down on him, because there were lots of children around and the 2 trees fell over. They had no idea how it happened. I mean, the children said how it happened, but they didn't believe what the children said. You know what the children said? He did it. Krishna did it. We saw. You know, the rope that's tied around, and then the other side was onto a wooden mortar, and he pulled the wooden mortar, and it fell over. And the wooden mortar got stuck between the 2 trees, and he pulled the 2 trees and uprooted the 2 trees. He did it. And not only that, from the 2 trees came these 2 celestial beings. They were effulgent, and they were very opulent and very beautiful, and they spoke, and then they left. And the adults went, right. Right, okay. Children's talk. But for the safety of the children, and from the cows, in 3 years and 4 months, they had trampled everything. The grass had been trampled upon and eaten and so forth. So they were looking for a better place for the cows. And they decided on Vrindavan because Vrindavan is one of the 12 forests. This term Vrindavan can mean two things. It's one of the 12 forests, or it can mean all of the 12 forests. Right? You with me? Okay. So the location of Vrindavan, Gokul, okay, you're going over here. Here's the river Jamuna. It runs kind of north and south. It kind of wiggles a little bit, but basically north and south, at least in Vrindavan area. And on the eastern side is where Gokul is. Mathura is on the western side. And then further west of Mathura is Vrindavan. And then further west is Nandagram, where Krishna's ancestral home lived. So during Krishna's time in Vrindavan, there were 3 places where the family lived, where the whole the cow herding community lived. One was way over here in Gokula. That was the first 3 years, 4 months. And then they shifted to Vrindavan, near where the town of Vrindavan is today, and different pastimes were performed there. And then they shifted one more time. They went to Nandagram. And when you all get a chance to visit Vrindavan someday, you'll visit those places. Well, at least for sure you'll visit Mathura, because the place where Krishna was born in Mathura is really built up. It's kind of like a fancy place now. And the town of Vrindavan, of course, you'll visit. And most likely you'll also want to visit Govardhan. If you don't visit Govardhan when you go to Vrindavan, you did something wrong. You should go to Govardhan. And Govardhan is within the area of Vrindavan. Well, here, I'm giving you the picture. And then Nandagram is a little further away. But it's still part of the place where Krishna performed his childhood pastimes. And when he was 11 years, 8 months, anyone here between 11 and 12? Anyone here of that age? How old are you? 10, almost, okay. Actually, it was 10 years, 8 months. 10 years, 8 months. Close? Okay. So that's when Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura. Mathura is the capital city. And he went to the capital city of Mathura because Kamsa wanted to kill him. He was not a nice man. He wanted to kill Krishna. A 10-year-old, 8-month-old boy wanted to kill him because it was told that child, who was the 8th son of Devaki, would kill him, so he wanted to get him. So he made an arrangement to try to kill him. So that's when he left Vrindavan and went to Mathura. So Gokul first, 3 years, 4 months. Then Vrindavan for 3 years, 4 months. So that's 6 years, 8 months. And then 10 years, 8 months, so another 4 years. He lived in Nandagram, or Nandagaon in the local language. Then he went to Mathura. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 11, where the elders are considering maybe we should not continue staying here. There's too much danger. Maybe we should shift to a safer place. It's better for the cows, fresh grass, and near the river Jamuna, which is very auspicious. So they had this little meeting, town meeting, And they decided the next day they left. It wasn't a big deal. They just put stuff in their bullock carts and off they went. So that's where we're reading from. Let's go to Canto 10, Chapter 11. Mm. Okay. Reading commentary, these are from our acharyas. And during the time of, do you all know, does anybody here not know who is, you all know who is Krishna. Do you know who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? No. Some say yes, some say no. Okay, here's who Lord Chaitanya is. When Krishna was present, he spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And the concluding teaching of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, it's chapter 18, text 66. It's a nice verse to learn. And all of those teachings I've given to you, they're less important than this one primary teaching. So, really important teaching. What's that? Take shelter of me. Surrender unto me. Mam ekam sharanam. Sharana means surrender. And all other things are secondary to that one primary thing. So do that one thing. And after Krishna left, his pastimes ended, he began to consider, after my departure, this age of quarrel has begun, age of Kali has begun. And people aren't going to understand how to fulfill that instruction, how to take shelter of me, how to surrender to me. They won't know. So I have to help them understand how to do it. And the very best way is if I come myself and show them how to do it. So in the mood of his own devotee, that's who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. In the mood of his own devotee, he appeared to teach how to take shelter of Krishna, how to surrender fully to Krishna. And it's by this chanting, as we were doing before when you came in, and hearing his messages and remembering him, reviving consciousness of him, taking shelter of him. So that was Lord Chaitanya, primarily through the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, to revive that dormant consciousness of him, of the mood of service to him. And he had followers who were very, very qualified people. One of them I'm going to read from, Sanatana Goswami. He was a contemporary, and during that period of time, there was about a third of India, Bengal and all of that, Orissa and the upper parts of India today, and into Bangladesh and so forth. It was ruled by one king, a Muslim king. And the prime minister for that king was Sanatana Goswami. Now, how he became the prime minister was kind of intimidating. The king recognized this person, Sanatana Goswami, is respected by everybody. And he's a very elevated devotee. So I'll threaten him. I'll tell him that either you assist me in my government rule, or I'll torment, kill, and torture all the devotees in the land. Think about it. He didn't want to become part of this person's government, but he didn't want the devotees to be tortured and tormented and killed. So he became part of his government. But he left it because that wasn't him. So he then went to Vrindavan, and after receiving very detailed instructions from Lord Chaitanya on the science of devotion, he wrote books on the science of devotion. And this is one of his books. He's making a commentary on this little section, and he's speaking about Vrindavan. We're just going to hear about Vrindavan. That's what we're doing this evening. So Sanatana Goswami writes in his commentary on this verse, that's text 28 of chapter 11, "This is the forest of Vrinda." Vrinda is Tulsi, Vrinda Devi, Tulsi Devi. Okay, good. "This is the forest of Vrinda who attained the mercy of the Lord and is most chaste and faithful. Thus Vrindavan was free of dangers and endowed with all good qualities." In this text, it is further described. It is suitable for the cows because of nourishing grass and does not have causes for sickness. This means it was superior to Mahavan, the forest where they were previously in Gokul, over here, Gokul, the eastern side of the river Jamuna. There are new groves which have sprung up now spontaneously for Krishna's playing. There are 9 forests, 6 such as Talavan, and 3 without the darkness of munja grass. It has mountains like Govardhan, grass like Darbha and Kusha, and bushes like Vishnu Parna, which are excellent for generating piety, punya. The place has pure mountains, whereas other places do not. Because the mountains are pure, pure trees are included in it and are not mentioned separately. Paragraph. The forests are evergreen with leaves and buds. The groves within Vrinda's forest have mainly trees with fruits and flowers. And the mountains and grass are extraordinary in being pure. Thus the forest is useful for the cowherds, for bhakti. Out of attachment, they can always enjoy there. There are no violent animals. Those animals which are normally enemies are friends. This is mentioned in Canto 10, Chapter 13. Canto 10, Chapter 13. It's the chapter dealing with Brahma stealing the calves and the cowherd boys and putting them in a cave. You know that story? No. In Vrindavan, the cowherd boys would go out every day and have fun. And there's like detailed descriptions of what they did. They were supposed to be herding the calves, but they were just playing. And the calves were attached to them, so they just followed along. They would play this way, that way. It's a very detailed description of their playing. And in that same chapter, it describes that their animals that were here and there in the forest were all very tame, and there was no harm for the cowherd boys to be out in the forest with the calves. Cows are mentioned twice to indicate easily available grass and water near Govardhan, which nourish the cows. Among the animals, the cows are the chief. For their benefit especially, there is grass and water. So these are contemplations about our next place to leave when we go from Gokula over here. Let's go on the other side of the river Jamuna. Let's go to Vrindavan. This is what it's like there. Yeah. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, he's a more modern commentator, about 200 years ago. We cannot return to our old capital of Nandishwara because we left there. So now, the ancestral home of the king of Vrindavan is Nandagram. Before Nanda Maharaj became king, his father was the king. His father's name was Parjanya. Parjanya, in Bhagavad Gita, Parjanya means rain. And when you perform sacrifice, this is in Bhagavad Gita, when you perform sacrifice, one of the results of sacrifice is rain comes. And when rain comes, it nourishes the crops. And when crops are nourished, the agriculture is benefited and the cycle of life is sustained. So it's recommended to perform sacrifice because then it produces rain. Anyway, so the ancestral home is Nandagram, and they left there before they went to Mahavan. There's some history of why that happened. They said, we left there, let's not go back there. Better is the place in between the ancestral home and where we are now, and that's Vrindavan. Let's go there. This place is suitable for living and beneficial for the cows because it is filled with lush foliage and fresh gardens. So now there's another text that I'm going to read from. This other text is just after Lord Chaitanya's appearance in this world, there was many wonderful devotees that came. Two of those, they're named Srinivasacharya and Narottam Das Thakur. I won't go into it. They're great personalities, great souls. They're being given a tour just after the time of Lord Chaitanya, the next generation, the tour of Vrindavan. Someone is taking them. His name is Sri Raghava, is taking them to different places, and he's describing. So that's what we're going to hear. The glories of Vrindavan are found in Adi Varaha Purana, where it says, O Prithvi, this 12th forest, Vrindavan, is the destroyer of all vices and is protected by Vrindadevi. It is certainly my favorite place. Here I will perform pastimes with my gopas and gopis in the famous, beautiful places which are beyond the attainment of the demigods. Then in Skanda Purana, Mathura Kanda section, Vrindavan is described as follows. Vrindavan is completely under Vrindadevi's grace. Sri Hari himself lives in this splendid, incomprehensible place, which is served by the demigods headed by Brahma and Shiva. Extending over a wide area, Vrindavan is decorated with forests of tulsi and the ashramas of saints. Vrindavan is as dear to Govinda as Lakshmi is to Vishnu. Surrounded by his cowherd boys and cows, Madhava sports in Vrindavan with Balaram. Oh, what a beautiful place is Vrindavan, where Govardhan mountain, along with many other holy places created by Lord Vishnu, are situated. So there's going to be a list of different scriptures speaking about the glories of Vrindavan. So first was Adi Varaha Purana, Skanda Purana, next is Padma Purana, where it says, Vrindavan is filled with transcendental bliss. It destroys the greatest sins and miseries Simply by living there, one is awarded liberation. Then in the Bhagavatam, it's described. This is our text. Between Nandeshwara and Mahavan is a place called Vrindavan. I was giving you this picture. So here again, here's the river Jamuna. On the eastern side is Mahavan. Way over here on the western side is the ancestral home, Nandagram, or Nandeshwara, and then in between the two is Vrindavan. So this is what's being described in the Bhagavatam. This place is very suitable because it is lush with grass, plants, and creepers for the cows and other animals. It has nice gardens and tall mountains, and is full of facilities for the happiness of the gopas and gopis and our animals. Then later, the Vrindavan is described by one gopi to her friends. "O friend, Vrindavan is spreading the glory of the earth, having obtained the treasure of the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Devaki. The peacocks dance madly when they hear Govinda's flute, and when other creatures see them from the hilltops, they all become stunned." Then there's another passage from Gautamiya Tantra, where Krishna is speaking to Narada. And he says, "Every part of this beautiful Vrindavan is my abode. Every creature or demigod who lives in this place will attain the spiritual world Goloka Dham after death. The cowherd girls who live in my abode are yoginis. The 5 yojanas of Vrindavan forest are like my body, and the spinal cord of the body is the Kalindi river or the river Jamuna." So like a yojana is 8 miles. So 5 times 8, 40. That's the width, the dimension of Vrindavan. And it's mentioned here that the river Jamuna is like a spinal cord. But we read yesterday, it's also likened to Shushumna. I hope you don't mind learning Sanskrit terms. There's the yogis, when they want to leave this world and go to the spiritual world, they follow this path, a yogic path called Shushumna. They control their prana, their life air, and when they connect their life air to this Shushumna path, they can go to the spiritual world. Here's another definition. It's a subtle pranic channel that connects the heart to the top of the head. And by passing through this channel, one goes beyond birth and death. You've heard of chakra meditation, right? Some of you have. Some of you haven't. Chakra, it's a type of meditation. They're energy centers in the spine that go from the base of the spine to different parts along the spine. And there's a meditation process where you move the life air by concentration through those different chakras or energy centers to the top of the head, called Brahmarandra. And then, boop, the soul is directed through this Sushumna channel beyond birth and death, beyond the body and beyond the forces that hold the soul within the material condition. Even when the soul leaves the body by natural death, you go to another body and go to another body and go to another body. But this Shushumna is a path by which mystic yogis, they know how the soul can leave the body and not return. So the statement being made in this section that we're reading, it's that the river Jamuna is like that. So it's vital for the life of the Brijbasis. Very sacred river. Deities and other spirits live here in invisible bodies, and I, Krishna speaking to Narada, living within every being, never leave this place. My appearance and disappearance has been enacted in every age. The divine and glorious illumination of this place is beyond worldly vision. The glories of Vrindavan are beyond anyone's calculation. People say Vrindavan covers 16 kroshas. That's 32 square miles. It's just the math. It's just a Sanskrit term, like an acre is an English term, and in India there's other terms, bighas and other things. So 32 square miles. And in the Shastra it says that Vrindavan extends 5 yojanas. That's 40 miles. But 32 square miles. Whoever has darshan of Govinda in Vrindavan never goes to Yamaraj's abode. You know who is Yamaraj, right? Lord of Death. We don't want to go there. Not a good place. But attains the destination of pious persons. The temple of Sri Govinda is situated in Vrindavan and is surrounded by devotees. A fortunate person can have his darshan. And so then comes Skanda Purana, where Narada Muni is speaking. In Vrindavan, the temple of Govinda Dev is surrounded by devoted worshippers. I prefer to live there. O King, in this world, Vrindavan is the Vaikuntha of Govinda. Vrinda and other female devotees of Krishna also remain there. O Mahapala, those great souls who get darshan of Govinda in Vrindavan are the most glorified persons in this world. Here's another series of verses glorifying Vrindavan, and then we're going to end. It's a little different. I mean, what I've been doing is more related to the stories, and this is not stories, it's just the glories of Vrindavan. So I hope it's meaningful. Okay. This is now written by Rupa Goswami. I mentioned Sanatan Goswami, who was Prime Minister of Nawab Hussain Shah in what is now like maybe 1/3 to 1/2 of India today. He was a big person. And his brother was Rupa Goswami. He was finance minister, prime minister and finance minister under this ruler. They both left and went to Vrindavan, received instructions from Lord Chaitanya, and wrote books on devotion. So here's Rupa Goswami writing a book called Mathura Mahatmya, the glories of the place. So it's not too long. A person who, fasting and controlling its senses, bathes in Bandiravan, one of the forests of Vrindavan, becomes free from all sins and goes to Indraloka. In the Adi Varaha Purana, we read, the 12th forest is Vrindavan, which is protected by Vrindadevi and which destroys all sins. It is my favorite. It is very beautiful and very famous. The Devas and the Danavas can attain it only with great difficulty. This looks like a similar set of verses. The Skanda Purana. Yeah. Yeah, this is a similar set of glorifications. Vrindavan is famous in this world as being 32 square miles. This is seen in the Sri Govinda Vrindavan Shastra and the Brihat Gotamiya Tantra in that scripture, Narada asks the following question: what is Vrindavan, which is named here as the 12th forest? I desire to hear of it, O Lord. If you think it is right, please tell me of it. Krishna replies, beautiful Vrindavan is my transcendental abode. The beasts, birds, trees, insects, worms, humans, and demigods who stay here with me will all go when they die to my abode. The gopis who reside here in my abode and serve me with devotion stay eternally by my side. The forest of 5 yojanas, or 40 miles, is my body. This Jamuna is the Shushumna river. There's that Shushumna word again. The path that yogis use for transcendence. The demigods and sages stay here in subtle forms. I, who am the personification of all the demigods, never leave this forest. Millennium after millennium, I appear and disappear. This splendidly beautiful forest then becomes invisible to material eyes. So that's the end. I'll say a few things and see if there's some discussion. The Krishna's appearances in this world is very rare. The appearance of Krishna is once in a day of Brahma. And Brahma's day is really long. The Brahma's day consists of 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas. So the 4 yugas last for 432 million years, times 1,000. So let's do it like this. You like math? So the present age is Kali Yuga, and its duration is 432,000 years. 432,000. And so far 5,000 have passed, because it starts when Krishna departs. 5,000 years ago it started. 432,000 is its duration. And the yuga that's prior to that is when Krishna was there. You add another 432,000. And that's the duration of the age when Krishna was present. And then Lord Ramachandra was present. You add another 432,000. That's how long was that age? Whatever that is. I don't do 1 million, whatever it is. So then the Satya Yuga is that's 4 times the Kali Yuga. You add another 432,000. And that's a duration, that's 4 yuga cycles. So let's do the math. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. So the duration of our age times 10 is 1 yuga cycle. 432,000 times 10, 4,320,000. And there's 1,000 of those in each day of Brahma. 4 billion. And Krishna appears in Vrindavan in only one of those 1,000 yuga cycles. So it's really rare. And when the other 999, the pastimes of Krishna are eternally going on. Just like if we go there to Vrindavan today, we won't because it's pandemic. We won't get on a plane and go there. But when it's over, let's say next year sometime, we'll go there. I invite you all. You're all invited. We're going to, pandemic permitting, we'll take a pilgrimage to Vrindavan. There was one planned for this October during Kartik, but we canceled it. But if it's permissible, we'll invite you all to come. Even if you can't come, we'll take videos of everything, and you can check it out that way. But when we go there, we won't see Krishna's pastimes. But Krishna's pastimes are eternally going on in the spiritual world, in Krishna Loka up here, and they're going on in this, the embassy place, the equal and not different from the original Krishna Loka, but in its unmanifest form. Unmanifest means to our eyes. So when it's time for Krishna's appearance, he makes his pastimes visible to evil people that have material vision. And then when his pastimes are over, he withdraws those pastimes to material vision, but they're eternally going on. There are very qualified devotees who experience Krishna's pastimes. They can experience Krishna's pastimes through very elevated meditation on sound meditation, mantra meditation. And they can experience and enter into those pastimes. But we can't because of material vision. But so when he manifests those pastimes, then that's what we're hearing is the description of this 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Krishna's pastimes 5,000 years ago that he showed the world. And he showed good people and bad people alike. Kamsa saw Krishna. But when he saw Krishna, he didn't see, oh, here's the source of everything. He saw his death personified. And so forth. Different people saw him in different ways. The yogis saw him as Paramatma, and so forth. Different people, although their material eyes could see, they didn't understand what they were seeing. And now we don't have, even with material eyes, we can't see because he's withdrawn his pastimes. But they're going on eternally. And that eternal pastime is being connected with through sound. That's the Vedic system. Everything is resting upon sound. Spiritual sound. And from the spiritual sound comes everything else. So, just by hearing of mantra and by hearing of the pastimes of Krishna, that consciousness that's within us, originally within us, but covered and forgotten, becomes awakened. Just like it's now that the summer is roaring. But there was, not too long ago, it was spring. And one of the things that people that, do any of you do gardening? Ah, good. So my father liked to garden, so I learned from my father about gardening. It starts with a seed. And in the end of the winter, the beginning of the spring, you take some seeds out of the jar or the bag or whatever, and you begin to make sprouts. Little tray and some soil and some moisture and sunlight, and then boop, that the life that's inside the seed that would have just stayed in there if you didn't sprout it comes out. And then when it gets a little bit of a root system, you take it, put it in the soil, and then it becomes a plant. And the plant, after the season, it becomes a flower or a fruit or a vegetable or whatever it becomes. And sometimes it takes a while. I remember, your age. My father planted a peach tree in our backyard. And I like peaches. So I remember looking at that peach tree and saying, where are the peaches? My father said, be patient. So the next year, spring, early summer, where are the peaches? And it'll come. So it took a few years, and then there were little green things. And they didn't mature, so I was like disappointed. But after the peach tree became mature, it produced fantastic peaches. And then we moved. So it may take some time for the peach tree to produce nice peaches, or the thing that you're trying to grow from a seed to become mature. Same way as germinating from a seed, a plant or a tree or whatever. So also the consciousness of Krishna that's within, there's a germination process. It's already there in a seed form, and it's awakened by sound. And when sound is vibrated, spiritual sound is vibrated, that original dormant consciousness awakens. And we start to remember things that we had forgotten, like who we really are, and where does everything come from, and things like that. It's described in Bhagavad Gita, but it's like notional or theoretical, and it becomes realized when consciousness becomes matured, spiritual consciousness, through sound. So that's what we're doing, just hearing description of Krishna's place, Vrindavan, in his own words or his devotees' words, and by hearing about what does a peach tree look like when it's mature. So as a little kid, I didn't know until it happened, but it took a while. But then I could see, oh, okay, produces peaches. So the bhakti process, the sound vibration process works. I've been practicing for a good number of years now, and I can testify it works. Sound vibration works. Spiritual sound vibration. It's very effective. When I was your age, I didn't know anything about anything. I mean, I didn't know anything about Krishna. I thought I knew a lot about a lot of things, but I didn't know anything about Krishna. And I hadn't even heard his name before. And Bhagavad Gita, I couldn't pronounce it, and so on. But by sound vibration, it awakens consciousness. And it's natural. It's already there. I'll just say one final thing and then see if there's some discussion. In 2010, I made my first visit to China. And there was a reason I went there. Without the reason, I went there. And I found some things very interesting. The people are really nice. I wasn't really fond of the government, but the people were really nice. And I found that they had a natural attraction for Krishna. Not everybody, but a lot of people, a natural attraction for Krishna. And when they had to translate Bhagavad Gita into Chinese, they had to make up a word for this, Sri Bhagavana Vacha. Because in English, it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead said. But they don't have a word in Chinese for God. Huh. A word is a symbol. Like, this is a chair. We have the word chair because it's a symbol of something. You can't sit in the word, but you can sit in a chair. And the word is the symbol of that thing. They don't even have a concept. So there's no word for it in their language. And for those people that don't even have a concept, when they hear Bhagavad Gita and hear the chanting of Krishna's name, something happens inside. I'm just sharing this with you. It's one of the reasons that I like going to China. Because in public forums, public forums means yoga studios and places that people don't know anything about anything. But, we come to do something, teach, Bhagavad Gita or Bhakti Yoga or something. There's some theme. So in the beginning, there's kirtan. And I've had no less than 30 30 plus experiences where people that never heard the mantra before, and not like a really fancy, well embellished presentation of sound, of music, just hearing the kirtan. At the end of the kirtan, somebody raises their hand and said, could you explain what just happened? During this singing, my whole body started to tremble, and I was feeling feelings in my heart I've never felt before. Tears were coming down my cheeks. My hairs were standing on end. What was that? It wasn't just like, an isolated. It's happened many times. So what I'm saying here is, attraction for Krishna is in the heart of everyone. It's already there. All you have to do is be a spirit soul, and that's all of us. And attraction for Krishna is already there. It just has to be awakened through sound. And when it awakens through sound, you feel something. Now, you don't always feel, tears in your eyes and your body trembling and some emotion inside. But the potency is there in the sound. And when it strikes the heart, it awakens that natural consciousness, natural devotion for Krishna. So that's what I've been doing, speaking from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, describing Krishna's activities and his place, Vrindavan, his devotees, and so forth. And it's very attractive, very potent spiritual sound vibration. So let's see if there's some discussion. Anybody here in the room would like to ask something? Vibhu Chaitanya, you can go ahead.
Guru Maharaj, I have two questions. You are mentioning that 30 plus instances where, those who have not heard the, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Kirtan, and they are getting these feelings. Coming from a background, so-called Hindu tradition that I came from, I have heard this, but I have not received or felt that kind of feelings. So what is that happened to them? Is it Krishna's mercy?
Yes. There's a natural soft-heartedness. I mean, they knew nothing about nothing. Blank slate. But a soft-heartedness and Krishna's mercy touched their heart.
And will it happen every time, or
No.
Was it the first time?
It happens. It has happened in completely different cities and completely different circumstances a number of times.
For the same person?
No.
No.
Oh, no. First-time people. Each time a first-time person.
My second question, I just want an answer, like how to, like a basic guideline, because when we hear stories about Krishna's pastimes and then try to especially teach to the children, they come up with a lot of different kind of questions, which is kind of tricky. For example, the Nalakuvara Manigriva, the 2 trees fell down, that you were discussing even today.
Yes.
So the elders came to ask, and the Gopas told that
The truth.
But the question came from the children was like, does it take so long for the adults to come? Because it was a huge tree falling down, and they could have just run and saw the 2, why were they late? So these kind of questions come, and I don't know how to answer. I'm sorry.
Logistics. There's the only specific mention from our acharyas is that they were some distance away. They were some distance away, and it took a while to get to where the boys were. They were some distance away. And the exchange must have been a quick exchange between Krishna and Nalakuvara and Manigriva. And then they departed. And then they came and they saw what they saw. So that's a logistic answer.
Okay.
When they heard, obviously they came running. So he's got something.
Okay, so my name is Pranav, and I just have a question. So,
Sure.
so what decides like what you are in your next life in the cycle of life and death? What decides what you are in your next life?
Okay. There's two things. Whatever your mind is attached to, according to Bhagavad Gita, people say when they have near-death experiences, your life flashes before you like fast events of your life, and your attachment, what you're attached to, that's where the mind goes, and where the mind goes, that's where you go. So that's where the mind is attached, that's where you go. And now so the second part is, what's the mind going to be attached to? It has to do with these two words, guna and karma. Karma, you know the word. Guna means modes of nature. Supposing, for example, you're accustomed to being very kind. Then over there, someone is accustomed to being really mean, like bully and harsh and rah, 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 the kind of person. So that's the mode of nature. So according to the combination of those two, that's where the mind goes. So we're making choices in the course of our lives. We're making choices, that's activity, and then the mood or the mode with which we do the activity. And that's going to determine, like the Black Lives Matter movement, big deal presently. It should have been a big deal long ago, but it's a really big deal right now. And then some people are just angry. Some people are trying to educate. Some people are just taking advantage and looting and pillaging and doing the same thing that they don't like because they're angry. So that's a mode, and then the modes help influence our actions. So all of that is an explanation of, it's going to determine what our mind is attached to. And whatever the mind is attached to, that's where you go. Okay.
Guru Maharaj, just a question about your journey and what attracted you towards Krishna.
It's a long story. It starts when I'll just do it in little pieces rather than the long story, like a short story. It started when I was very young. I was brought up in a Christian family, and I heard about the kingdom of God, and I wanted to know what it was like. And nobody had answers. And I tried different people, and nobody had answers. So I wanted to know, but nobody knew. So I just kind of got busy with school and stopped asking. But it's the inclination to want to know came back again towards the end of my undergraduate studies in college. Circumstances prompted it, the times and so forth and so on, without the detail. And so I went into this space again that said three things. There's a higher reality. And I know that I don't know what it is. And I want to know those three things. And I was really determined without some details. The circumstances helped prompt. Well, I'll just give one of them. One of them was when I was in college, the war in Vietnam was going on. And my parents told me I'm getting notices from the government to be drafted. It's called 1A, classification 1A, to go sign up with the military, with the army, get a uniform, and fly off to Vietnam. And I thought, the war is dumb. And why take somebody out of medical school to go fight a dumb war? It's double dumb. So I didn't respond. And they kept getting notices and said, you got to respond, or they'll put you in jail. So I thought, okay, better respond. And so I got advice that the Quakers, as a Christian group, they'll advise you how to fill out a conscientious objector form. So I got a conscientious objector form. The first question says, state the nature of your belief in God such that you cannot take part in the armed forces of the United States of America. Piece of cake. I know how to get A's in exams. So I just put in the right answer and get an A in the exam. But the pen wouldn't move because I didn't know. I mean, I could give an A answer, but I didn't know my own convictions. And my pen fell out of my hand saying, what? I don't know what my convictions are? Something's wrong. And then when that came up, then there were 99 other questions I didn't have answers to. They should be asking, but I was too busy being successful to ask and get answers. So I did it. I'm doing a timeout. I want to get answers. Not, so that was an impetus. What's that higher reality that I know that I don't know and I want to know? So that's what started the, going around again. And then I came across, I read 7 other translations of Bhagavad Gita before I read the one I'm now living by. There's some story behind how that happened. And I couldn't understand them. I read 7 Bhagavad Gitas and I didn't understand them. And then some time passed and somebody gave me Bhagavad Gita number 8. And I could understand it very easily. I was puzzled. Why the 7, and then this one is so easy? But I kept reading it, then I could understand why it was easy. Because it was based on realized knowledge, it wasn't academic speculation. It resonated. So I just kept following the resonation thread and learned more, and life unfolded. It took a while. It wasn't quick because I was really cautious. I felt I had been like a blind following donkey, just like doing all the things you're supposed to do to be successful without even, when the light's out, I don't even know who I am. I don't want to do that. I don't want to live that kind of a life. Be successful when I don't even know who I am or what my convictions are. No way. So that's what's a kind of rebellious spirit, young kid growing up during the counterculture era. I don't want to take somebody else's word for it. I want to know. And one thing led to the next thing. That's a short version. Anything else?
Thank you, Maharaj. So with aging, they say you get wisdom, but my personal experience is more of less patience, lot more temperament is what I'm facing now. How can I kind of control the situation?
Well, control the situation is from the inside, not the outside. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, a starting point is, I want to. I'm here, I want to be there. Then there's a big gap between where I am and where I want to go. And so I need a means to get me to take a step that's in the direction of where I want to go. Because the quantum leap thing doesn't work. You can go up for a bit, but it doesn't stay up. It comes back down quickly. Modes of nature, like his question about where the soul go after. It's the modes of nature pulls you right back. You're back into the same stuck position. So that which can free us from bondage, the means is required, and Bhagavad Gita provides the means. You need proper teachings and a proper teacher, just like if you have a disease. You need a good doctor with good medicine and a good diet, and you follow the good doctor's medicine and diet regime, and you get well. So you need good teachings and a good teacher. That's the 7 versions of Bhagavad Gita before I found one that resonated. I could understand it. So then you take the teachings and connect with the teacher and take the teachings that make sense to you, and then you take a step in that direction. You do those things that make sense to you, and you stay with it. I mean, for some people, let's take for example, because I don't know what's going on, but for some people, controlling the tongue is a good place to start. So become vegetarian for some people, and once they've become vegetarian, to then take those foods and offer them to Krishna. And then it becomes Krishna Prasadam. And then you're eating sanctified food instead of vegetarian food. And then comes the next step is the cleanliness with which you do everything that's connected with preparing the food and offering the food. So the mode of goodness rises and devotion rises. There's steps. That's just taking the one, the tongue. And then you reach a place where I don't eat anything unless it's prepared in devotion and offered to Krishna. That means I don't go outside for eating and so forth and so on. But it's the little steps and going in the direction. And so then another function of the tongue, I'm mentioning the tongue because it's spoken by Rupa Goswami. If you want to achieve what you just said, he writes, it starts with the tongue, the vibrating and the tasting. When you can control the tongue, you can control the other senses. When you can control the other senses, you can control the mind. When you can control the mind, you can rise to this higher consciousness place. It starts with the tongue. So, but go in little steps. So vibrate mantra and try to minimize speaking blah blah. Gramya katha, village talk, prajalpa, idle talk. Minimize. And there's different ways of going about that. I know somebody that works in a high pressure professional atmosphere, and they decided they wanted to try an experiment. For 1 hour, from 3 to 4, to Monavrata in the workplace. Now, if they had to speak, they would speak. They wouldn't. But usually the speaking is very, very active in the morning hours, and then after lunch it's a little busy, and then after that it's, you just settle down and do your work. So that was when she, in this corporate thing, and she found the urge to speak unnecessarily is really strong. So the controlling of her tongue, it was assisted by that. So I'm not saying everybody has to do that. There was a creative way of going about controlling the tongue. And so using it in a positive and refraining from the, not so positive. From the vibration side, recite a chapter of Bhagavad Gita aloud. It takes, 8 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever. Just the slokas, or the slokas in translation. And start somewhere, do something. Control the tongue, then control the senses, control the mind. Higher consciousness. Okay, how are we doing with the online questions?
The first question is from Atulya Mataji's daughter Radha. When Gopas told the elders that Krishna knocked the trees and elders did not believe them, why did Krishna not speak that he indeed knocked the trees down?
They wouldn't have believed him either. And he was doing a pastime. There are many places where Krishna would show his Aishvarya, or his opulence, sufficient to give this mood of astonishment to his devotees. Krishna's power, his majesty. And then he would withdraw that majesty or that opulence, and sweetness would prevail. He would cover them with his Yogamaya potency, and they would feel sweetness instead of majesty. So he was doing like that.
Question from Satish Bhatnagar Prabhu. Is there a way we can chant just like we are chanting for the first time with a clean slate? Is it recommended?
Is it recommended to chant as if we're chanting for the first time? Do you understand the question?
No. Is it like I am a beginner every time?
Well, each mantra is a new mantra. And our experience is a new experience. But I don't know if the idea that says, hey, I've never chanted before, let me try it out. I guess the spirit of adventure is nice, but what's important is not specifically that, but whatever works for attentiveness to the sound. So let's just say, supposing somebody has been involved in chanting for some time, and they have developed a capacity to go deeply into that sound vibration. They don't need to go back to square one. They can orient their hearing faculties to the deep meditation that they now have become familiar with. I think that's a nice approach.
This question is from Giri Vatikota. Krishna's pastimes, which only very elevated devotees, which you are referring, where can we read or hear those unknown pastimes and purify us?
We've been doing it. Our unknown. Start with the ones that Vyasadeva has given, and start there. Don't go for the unknown ones. Go for the known ones and hear them again and again.
This question is from Sri Radhika Mataji. Is it true that Krishna always responds to his pure devotees' prayers? And if so, can we be sure that Srila Bhakticharu Maharaj will be returned to us, since so many pure devotees are praying for his recovery? Is it possible for Krishna to have a different plan, distinct from his pure devotees' desires.
Yes. Yes, Krishna hears his pure devotees' prayers, and yes, Krishna may have a different plan.
This question came yesterday, Maharaj. This from Amara Mataji. How can the propensity of adventure can be dovetailed in Krishna's service?
Take sannyas. He's confused by the answer? Do you? No, with no fixed attachment to anything, and just be ready for anything, whatever Krishna arranges. I would say another answer is the journey of spiritual awakening is a grand adventure. It doesn't require taking sannyas. It's just that there's the unknown next moment where you're just placing yourself completely dependent upon Krishna. That's very wonderful. It's quite an adventure. Stay in your position as a student or a householder or whatever, and take serious, sincere efforts to go towards Krishna, and it is definitely an adventure. Sannyas is a special kind of adventure too. A monk, you know what the monk is? Sannyas, monk. It's a different kind of adventure. Next question.
This is the last question from Radha Chatterjee. What is consciousness?
What is consciousness? Well, consciousness is one of the essences of a living entity. There's Krishna, the supreme living entity. There's the tiny spark living entity. Consciousness is the faculty, the capacity to be aware. And it's the soul is the seat of consciousness. It's awareness. The awareness works through sensory power, and then the sensory power works through sense organs. But the seat of consciousness is the soul. It's awareness extending out into the world around us, and ultimately consciousness of the source of everything. That's consciousness.
Couple of more questions came.
Okay.
So I have understood that Lord Buddha, right? He went through a similar path. If he had his own journey,
Yes.
and he went and he became a kind of a sannyasi. He
Yes.
was a sannyasi,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming that he had the same Krishna. He ran into the same questions, like you had your own questions.
Yes.
And he found the truth in the end, which is through spirituality and through yoga. Is that Krishna? Is there a Buddhism and Krishna consciousness meet at some point, or there's a difference between the two philosophies?
Well, there's a meeting. You know what a Venn diagram is?
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
overlapping, and there's some quite distinct parts. And the overlapping, I mean, it's a quick list: karma, reincarnation, attachment brings misery, modes of nature, and so forth. So there's some very similar points. Then, just like this question of what is consciousness, Buddha doesn't acknowledge consciousness. He doesn't acknowledge the soul, and he doesn't acknowledge the Supreme Soul. That's big. And the source of knowing is another thing. That's the difference. The Vedas is the source of knowing, and for Buddha, there's no source of knowing. There's no scriptural authority. Now he wrote and gave teachings, and his teachings are encoded, and now available in Sanskrit and other languages. But so there's teachings, but the teachings lead to Buddhism. It doesn't lead to realizing who you are, it's realizing who you aren't. And ultimately, you're nothing. That's nirvana. So that's a short version. It's the starting point is there is a higher reality. And I want to know. And then, this isn't it, and this isn't it, and this isn't it, and that isn't it. So what's left? Well, the answer is inside. Go inside. Without shelter of the Vedas, he didn't find Krishna. He found what isn't. That's what nirvana means. That which is not, or the cessation of material existence. And when you cease material existence, you don't know who you are. That's nirvana space. And then there's something on the other side of nirvana. That's who you are.
So there are a few more steps.
Yes.
Thank you.
You had something, yes?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, so when you said sannyas,
to take sannyas.
You got nervous, huh?
No, no, actually, how do we practice sannyasi? Because we have some responsibilities.
Oh yeah, you don't take sannyas. You don't. I was teasing.
Okay.
So here's for to respond specifically to your question. There's a very nice text, Canto 10, Chapter 14, text number 3. Do you have a Bhagavatam set in your home? You can. Okay, so it's a verse spoken by Brahma to Krishna that summarizes the answer to your question, and it goes like this: stane statak, stay in your position. You don't have to take sannyas. You don't have to, but the endeavor to understand higher truth by speculative knowledge, let go of it. Jnane prayasa udapasya namanta eva. Give up that. So rather, engage in hearing. Shruti katam tanavan manobir. Engage in hearing the messages of transcendence. And by that process, the dormant consciousness can be awakened. So you don't have to take sannyas. You don't have to stop this, that. Stay in your position. You have your nature, your mother, and your this and that. You have your psychophysical nature. Acknowledge it. And give up the endeavor for speculative knowledge. Engage in hearing. Shruti gatam tanavan manobir. The mind becomes cleansed, consciousness becomes cleansed, and the realization of who you are becomes awakened. perform your duties according to the codes of theistic conduct. That's the mode of goodness bubble, or incubation chamber. And then the hearing is the awakening of higher consciousness position. She'll help you with get the verse. Okay. Questions online?
Yes. Question from Atulya Mataji's daughter Vishaka.
She's like 4 years old. Radha's whatever she is, 8 years old or something. The other earlier question.
What is the quickest way to go to Krishna?
The Krishna Express. Non-stop. High speed. One who becomes closely connected to one who is closely connected to Krishna, that's the quickest way. One of the difficulties that we have in making progress is we're very attached to our so-called independence, and we want to get there on our own. We want to get to wherever we want to get. So false sense of independence is a big inhibitor. The sense of, conversely, taking full command of the responsibilities of our life, at the same time placing ourselves in the care and shelter of someone who is spiritually elevated, that's the quickest. You take shelter of a sadhu sangha, in short. Sadhu sangha is the quickest. And the obstacle is our independent mindedness. We want to do things our own way and in our own time, in our own our own this and that. Independent mindedness. There's nothing wrong. Be fully an individual. I mean, Vishaka, you and your sister and your mom and your dad, you're completely different people. And that's fantastic. So be yourself. At the same time, be in close shelter of elevated personalities and feel their enthusiasm, their encouragement and their protection, and go forward. That's the fast track. That's the Krishna Express.
This question from Uttama Bhakta Prabhu. Is deep unflinching desire plus the effort for the lotus feet of Krishna and his devotees better attitude than thinking of it as a goal?
Better than what?
Is it a better attitude than thinking of it as a goal? It's a better attitude.
To be rather than to get there?
Yes.
Well, sure. I don't know. They're both good.
So goal.
You have to start somewhere. So if I'm way down here and I look at something that's way up there, it's like I aspire to get something that's way up there. But it doesn't disconnect from, okay, I'm here and I want to get up there. Let me try to be in this mood according to my capacity. They both have their place.
So the goal versus destination may suggest that I have a control rather than mercy and patience.
Okay, he knows the answer. He's a good teacher. The doership mentality without dependence upon Krishna doesn't go very far spiritually.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Oh, you have? Okay, this is our last question.
Two questions.
Two questions.
One is about the solar eclipse. Somebody asked me today that how does it affect us, solar eclipse?
I don't know the details other than I have heard, I've read, it's inauspicious. So what should you do when you're in contact with something that's inauspicious? You go jump in the Ganges, or you do something that's purifying. So we do something that's purifying when you're in contact with something that's inauspicious. So that person, what do they like? What's their favorite purification? And do some of that. That's what you do.
So I suggested them Harinam.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another question is like when I read Srimad Bhagavatam, I feel I'm nowhere. When I read Bhagavad Gita, I feel I'm nowhere. So like similarly, cleanliness standards, I feel nowhere. So it looks a long journey.
Good.
So
Are you discouraged or encouraged?
like it looks like a challenge.
Oh,
Like
that
it,
challenge.
it
Life is a
looks
challenge.
very tough.
You want a life that
sometimes.
doesn't have challenge?
Yeah, it is.
That would be pretty boring.
Yeah.
And it's not real either. Life has challenge. You know, a little child learning to walk. You know, they don't know how to walk. But walking capacity is there. It just take a few tumbles and mommy's help, and the child learns to walk. So same for you. A life that has no challenge is boring. That's not to be sought. And if you think that the goal is too high, then set a goal for yourself that's within your reach, and it's aligned with the higher goal. And you do that, then celebrate, and then go to the next one. Like this same question of her question. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay.